last year, and it sort of brought me to a certain point. So when I first started the John Clare project, I very much felt a bit awash, because there was all sorts of things I felt as though I was at the cusp of doing, and then I had to sort of discipline myself into one particular channel. But the beauty of the project was that I've worked with regards to John Clare for some time, not directly, but through his landscape. He's sort of popped up now and then, and sort of included in a bit of my work. So my approach was trying to think of me first, and how he slotted into what my current sort of pattern of work is. And I do an awful lot of walking. I walk all the time, outside all the time, and I sometimes think actually I'm going to walk myself to death. And that's a good thing, because I really can't get enough of it. It's like a drug. I've been like that for years and years, but I suppose just having a family and not being able to go as far, I've sort of really walked this area a lot. And I like the idea of John Clare having walked in the same area too, although it's radically changed since then. But I like to sort of, one of the things I like about landscape is I get a sense of history from it, social history, and of course all the marks in the land. You know, they're not natural; they're completely man-made. And about 2 years ago, I bought a book in Aldeburgh called Dykes, Ditches and Hedges, and that's the sort of thing I like to read. I don't take a huge amount of influence from other artists. I tend to take it from things like that. And of course, because John Clare was very obsessed with enclosures, I sort of could follow the pathways, but with the imagination of getting rid of the dykes, although I understood why they were there, and the hedges and everything. It just opened up the landscape rather than enclosed it for me. So walking around, of course, a lot of the time it's very muddy, and I'm very interested, because of the work I did last year, in relief work, and I've become more sculptural in my approach. I've got into textiles because I like the texture, and everything sort of really implied that I needed to work with some sort of relief work. And so, looking at the landscape, what had patterns, and initially I was interested in shadow, because that obviously casts from a relief a shadow from something three-dimensional, but it would still go back to being two-dimensional because it was just a shadow. So I sort of started playing with plaster, and one of the inspirations that I took was I went to the Pitt Rivers Museum and looked at their fossils, and I liked the idea of John Clare coming into the countryside and sort of constantly feeding himself with his own words, and maybe some of those words would fall out and spill onto the ground, and they would be sort of become fossilised in the ground, and as a consequence, when enclosures came, these things were never picked up by him because they were fenced off by him. And so my search, my walk in the countryside, my mission is to find these nuggets of poetry that are still embedded in the ground. He's very much preoccupied with him being the servant of nature, and the idea of creator as nature and John Clare as the muse. And I really like that sort of battling between, yes, he's writing stuff, but at the same time, he's actually just a slave to what he sees. It's all there. He's just writing it down in order for us to be able to appreciate it. And so the clods, which is what I'm sort of concentrating on, are at the moment they're plaster maquettes that I'm doing. And the idea is that you could be walking in the countryside and stumble, and there's something glittering, and it's the words of John Clare that have not yet been discovered. So it's like a time capsule of poetry, and I'm really enjoying doing it, and it's very compulsive because it's never ending. I can put all sorts of stuff onto the clods, crack open the clods, and I like the idea of them being precious. So if you found them, they're like a relic of John Clare, and the idea is for people who come to the cottage who are paying homage to John Clare, that maybe when they come in at the exhibition that we do for Earth, they may, if I'm lucky enough to find it in the meantime, find this nugget which cracked open is like the Holy Grail, or like play by Shakespeare or something like that, you know, then it's been found in the fields around the cottage, and it's in the cottage if you want to go in there to see it. I mean, his legacy is not material. It is only his words. I mean, obviously his personal story is important, but I mean, if you take that side, take the celebrity part out of it, it is simply his words, and his words are so descriptive to the point of he was very snobbish about other people's, and probably rightly so, snobbish about the fact that they would depict nature in their poetry. It was called posy, because it was a little bit sort of mannered and artificial, whereas his description, he described it like a painting, and also like somebody that was sort of a topographical type of person, because, you know, he knew all the little lanes and stuff, so he wasn't just observing, I don't know, a squirrel or something. No. He knew exactly what their nests were like, he nibble on the nut. That minute detail, you don't find that in anyone else.